You are listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCZW LP Conroe and 106.1 KZCC LP Conroe and worldwide on irlonestar.com.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox advisor and the host of the Weekly Business Hour. Thank you for joining us today. This is a great day here in the city of Conroe and county of Montgomery in Texas. The sun's out, it's nice and cool in the 70s, and we're going to have a great show for you today. We're going to start out with the thought for the week entitled Recovery and Rebuilding. Our special guest today that'll be joining us is Jamie Meche, owner and administrator of Comforts of Home Personal Care Services. Also joining us in the expert corner will be Chris Wehe with the Koch Insurance Group, who'll give us some ideas about how to properly fill out claims if you have one with your insurance. And I'll close out today's show with my Silver Fox tip of the week, business succession. Why plan now? So sit back, grab your pad and pencil, and get ready to take notes as we talk about business right here on the Weekly Business Hour. And before we move on, I want to encourage you that if you have a question, a comment about the show, that you reach out via email here at the station to me, Rick, R-I-C-K, at irlonestar.com. That's Rick at irlonestar.com. Send me your comments, or even if you have a question about your own business, please send it my way. I love receiving those emails and communicating with our listeners. Well, let's start out with our thought for the week, as promised, recovery and rebuilding. This is a time of the season when the city of the city of Houston, I guess, the greater Houston area, many counties across South Texas and Southeast Texas have been affected by a storm called Hurricane Harvey. And now also, it's kind of interesting. The storm affected people in Louisiana. Then we have Irma in Florida. We have wildfires in Montana and California, and an earthquake in Mexico, and I'm sure other calamities around the world. We always, as business people, need to have in the back of our mind that we may have to face a situation when we have to recover and rebuild our business after a natural or man-made disaster strikes. One of the things I feel that doesn't get enough attention when we have these disasters strike our businesses is the mental health. You know, I think it's very important that you as a business owner take a quick look in the mirror and say, how am I doing? You know, it's interesting when you watch TV, you watch the news, and you see the looks on the faces of people. You hear their stories whose homes have been flooded, and occasionally someone who's lost their business. This impacts everybody, and it not only impacts you, but it impacts your employees. And that's the second thing you need to do is find out how your employees are doing. See how they're doing mentally. Are they being productive? Are they able to be productive? These are the kind of questions you need to ask. And the third thing is you need to ask yourself, what can I and should I do about it? That's a very important question because most of you are not in the psychology business and you're not really qualified to do something about it, but we always are in the business of offering encouragement and looking for resources that we can refer our employees to or that we perhaps ourselves need to be referred to. So remember, recovering, rebuilding is about a lot of different issues, but it's most important that you look at your mental health of you and your business. Opportunities are right there in front of you, so grab on them. Make a success out of your business. The Weekly Business Hour is where Montgomery County and businesses throughout the world come to talk about the latest in business news, ideas to improve your business, and to hear from some of our local business leaders right here on irlonestar.com. Don't forget, the Weekly Business Hour is on Facebook, so I encourage you, please like us on Facebook at the Weekly Business Hour page. Set up an alert so that each week when we post the show, the podcast of the show is available, you'll get an alert. You get a chance to see who was on the show, what we talked about, and if you see something interesting, you can listen to that podcast. I encourage you to do it. Like us on Facebook. It's an important thing to do. Well, today we have, as I mentioned, a wonderful business guest with us. Jamie Meche is with us. She's the owner and administrator of Comforts at Home Personal Care Services. Jamie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You know, the personal care service business, I assume most people in business feel that they personally care for their customers and clients, but your business requires a lot of caring, a lot of in-depth relationship building. I want to talk about all those things today. But before we do that, let's talk about your background in business and how you came to found your company.
Well, my career in healthcare began about 13 years ago when I graduated as a speech-language pathologist. Went to work for several skilled nursing facilities and home health agencies. And going into the homes of seniors, I saw a lot of need out there. There's a lot of good companies, but then there's a lot that may lack a little bit of, I would say, leadership and making sure that those caregivers are doing what needs to be done in the home. So 2 years ago, I decided that I can do this. I can be a business owner and I can provide the care that needs to be given to our seniors.
Well, let me ask you that kind of a loaded question. You've been, 3 years in the business, 2 to 3 years? If you could start again, looking back with that short history, is there anything you would have done differently in starting the business, just starting a business that might help someone who's thinking about starting their own business?
I would say that growth is challenging because there's a lot of competitors here in Montgomery County. And just from the business side of things, knowing that there's a lot of competitors and it's not going to be easy to grow, despite the fact that you have love, compassion in your heart, doesn't make you a good business person. So you need to surround yourself. I have a wonderful business mentor that's been in this line of business for 13 years, and I'm very thankful for him. Andrew Ballard in Lafayette, Louisiana, and he mentors me. So I would say that before you venture out into this, you need to make sure that you've spoken to someone that's been in the industry so that you know firsthand what you'll be dealing with.
Well, you're talking about something close to my heart because, as you know, I'm a business mentor and advisor, and it was important, and I've said it on the show probably too many times, how important it was to me in my success in my businesses to have those kind of people around to talk to me on a continuing basis so that I just didn't build a business kind of in a shell with
Correct.
no one else to talk about. Well, let's talk briefly about the competition. I mean, every business has competition, and the competition's always changing. And I do find that that's often very difficult for a small business to kind of determine who their competitors are. I mean, you can go to the Yellow Pages or somewhere like that, but who their competitors really are. Did you find that out before you started, or are you still finding that out?
Well, I always knew that there were many franchises out there. There's lots of large franchises that have been in business for many, many years. And I knew that well before going into this business. As a speech pathologist, I knew that when I went into the homes, there were different agencies out there. So I was not blind to that. There's also several privately owned and operated companies, just as myself. So I wasn't blindsided by that. A little thing that does catch me off guard is that, it takes a while to build the trust of the community. Through marketing, you go into hospitals, you go into assisted living facilities where you deal with case managers, executive directors. You still have to earn their trust. And that's the challenging part. You have to earn the trust of the community.
You and I were talking prior to the show, and we talked a little bit about that trust element, and I believe in every business, you have to have a certain level of trust for people to buy you a box of cereal or whatever. But I really feel your business is up on the higher end of that scale, if you will, that building trust and maintaining that trust is so important to have those relationships you have. How do you, if you can share a secret or two, how do you build trust, but mainly how do you maintain that trust in those relationships?
I think centering myself around leaders within my company. I trained my office manager. I say trained. She came with the same moral values that I have. So it really wasn't a training. It's surrounding yourself with those people that share the same morals. And I tell all of my clients, the caregiver that I may send out may have various personalities, different qualities. But when we hire them, we base that decision on the same morals that myself and my office manager have. So making sure that those caregivers share our vision for the company is what sets us apart, is what helps develop that trust. Also communication, letting our clients and their families know that myself and my office manager are available 24/7. They'll text us sometimes 10 o'clock at night, and they know that we'll respond. And that's what sets us apart. That's what helps us develop that trust with family and clients.
You just mentioned something that I think is so important, and sometimes it gets put in a negative light. The fact, in your example, you receive a communication, a text at 10 o'clock at night that you respond. It's not like, oh, no, I've got to stop what I'm doing and respond to this client. It's really an opportunity to communicate with a client and to build that trust.
Correct. It's very important that we respond, and they know it is a building relationship, because at first it's probably just words when I go in and say, this is what my company's about. But within a week or two, they realize that it's not words, and that when they need, my office manager and myself are available.
Well, it sounds like you've got a great vision, and more importantly, you're executing on that vision every day. Well, let me ask you, personal service, we've talked about it. Again, I said it was high on my scale of building relationships, trust. It's got to be dealt with every minute of every day, literally. What are some of the biggest challenges you have in the personal service business?
Staffing. I'll be honest. Some companies may not want to share that, but it's staffing. It's a high turnover industry. Caregivers need a paycheck week to week, and hours vary. So we can't fault our caregivers for wanting to work for multiple companies and picking up shifts when they need to find a shift. So there is a high turnover. But if you are a good company and you prepare for that, we interview weekly, and we make sure that we're bringing in new caregivers, new faces each week to make sure that we can maintain caregivers as needed for our clients.
I can see that challenge of having to balance what you have, people available to people who contact you and need services, because usually they need them pretty quick.
Correct.
Right? Got to turn it around.
Right. Just the other night, I got a call at 5:30, and by 8 o'clock at night, we had that caregiver in there. So yes, sometimes it's this 2-hour turnover. You get a call, and 2 hours later, your caregiver is in the home.
Boy, that's an amazing situation to balance those two out. Well, ladies and gentlemen, believe it or not, have already come to our first break. We appreciate you joining us. When we come back, we're going to talk with Jamie some more about building that workforce and some of the key things to developing that vision and that culture to make a company successful. So please stay with us, and we'll be right back with you.
Lone Star Community Radio is looking for those who are interested in hosting their own talk show, with monthly and weekly slots available on Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and on irlonestar.com. Start your own podcast, create your first YouTube channel, and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at irlonestar.com or call the station message line at 936-647-3776.
Hispanic Chamber Connections with Dr. Carlos Sanchez, President of the Woodlands Conroe Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, featuring event announcements, member highlights, and more. Tuesdays at 1 p.m., broadcasting from the heart of Conroe, Texas on irlonestar.com and Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1.
You are listening to the Weekly Business Hour, and we're pleased today to have Jamie Meche with us. Jamie's the owner and administrator of Comforts of Home, a personal care service business. And we've been talking with Jamie about hiring people, developing culture, what the challenges in the personal service business are. And, Jamie, as we come back, I want to talk a little bit, because we touched on it briefly, about marketing. How do you make your business stand out? As you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of folks in this business. I don't know if it's a crowded marketplace or not, but they're, like you mentioned, some are franchise, some are personal. So I see a way to differentiate businesses already. How do you, to the public that may be looking for your services, how do you make yourself stand out?
So marketing is very challenging because, as we said, competitors are fierce. There's a lot here in Montgomery County, but what we focus on is being true to who we are as a company. And I don't ever shy away from that. Our vision is to always give quality care with true commitment to trust, to communication, and we just keep focusing on that. We do focus a lot on the fact that we are privately owned and operated, so many of our decisions can be based on what comes from our mind, what comes from our heart, and driven by our morals, and not necessarily a number and a bottom dollar. And we just keep stressing that to the public, that we are here for you. We are here to make it work for you, your family, the client, financially, and with that care plan, and not always worry about the bottom dollar. And
Well, let me ask you, how do you convey that through your written materials or your website or whatever? How do you convey that message?
we try to keep focusing on love, compassion, integrity, honesty, and just beating that message to the public that, there's lots of companies out there, but you have to make a sound decision as to what works for you and your family. Over the course of last year, myself and a partner that does community speeches in the community focus on advocating for seniors and letting them know that there's choices out there. I'm not always saying that my company is the right company for you and your family, but if we can educate families and seniors on what's out there for them, then they can make a sound decision on what's best for them. And that's what we focus on.
Well, I always think the educational component, or at least in many businesses and some that I had, is so important when you're willing to unselfishly give information out, educate, like you say. Maybe not my company. Has that worked for you?
It is. We've come a long way in a short period of time. I've always set goals for myself, and every 3 to 6 months I'll visit those goals, and we're reaching them. It is a fluctuating market, so some months may be a little slower or a little more with billable hours, but we just take it and go with it. We have to keep focus on our mission, on what we want to see as growth in the community. And so far, it's been great.
Well, obviously, employees are just really the key to your business. And I'll say it 3 or 4 times. They are the key to your business, not real estate, as the old saying goes. How do you find these employees, and then how do you maintain, how do you keep them? And you've mentioned a couple times how difficult it is, but how do you find them?
So we, of course, market through different hiring agencies. ZipRecruiter is a big one that we use, and we'll schedule interviews on a weekly basis, but not every week will we hire someone. So we don't hire the first warm body that walks into our office. As I said before, we spend a lot of time during that interview process through conversation and just getting to know that person. Is this someone that shares the morals and values of our company? After, we make that decision, they're put through an extensive orientation where we share that vision again. We background check all of our caregivers. I go the extra step. I don't just do the national database, but I also do the last county that they lived in to make sure that there aren't any misdemeanors or anything on their record. We drug screen, which is a good indicator. That'll weed out a lot of caregivers that come in for jobs. So we drug screen, and then we also reference check all of our caregivers. And so far, it's been great. We don't have many problems.
Well, 2 things came to mind. I want to ask you. One is kind of a technical question or whatever, the drug screening. I've read several articles really recently how drug screening, because we're in an employment market, or at least many markets where you can't find, or it's very hard to find people, qualified people. And the drug screen, at least is being reported, is really weeding out a lot of people, that these people just can't get a job because drug screening has become the norm instead of the exception. Do you find the drug screen weeding out your candidates?
Yes, sir, we do. And it's very unfortunate because we'll have lots of ladies that come in and present so well. And I'm not saying that they are not moral, good ladies, but there is a problem, and we can't have people that are on drugs going into the homes of seniors. And yes, I would say at least one a week for sure, not obtain employment with our company because of a failed drug screen.
Boy, that is amazing. You mentioned, and to me, the more important thing I heard is you interview constantly, whether you need people or not. I heard that, which is always something I've encouraged my clients and businesses, maybe not every week, but once a month, whatever, have a goal in your plan that you, even if you don't need anyone, just consistently, as I call it, cast your net out there. You do that every week. How much time do you spend, or your office spend, on a weekly basis in this process?
My office manager is in charge of that. I'll usually go in at the end of the interview process to meet these caregivers that have made the necessary cut, as we say. Really, she does spend a few hours a week just making the phone calls to schedule the ladies. Then her interview process is a couple hours, orientation. So I would say definitely a day and a half of work per week.
Well, that is really amazing. Again, it's obviously a very important asset of your business, finding good people. But to me, that sets the tone for any business, that you've got to allocate time and resources to interview and screen and find good people. Again, whether you need them or not, you've got to look for them all the time. Well, let me ask you, we've talked about marketing your business, and the personal home care business to me is a kind of a new business over the last 5-10 years. I'm sure it existed prior to that, but there's a lot of advertising. I guess the franchise operators, the companies advertise. You see, we talked about baby boomers, you and I, and so this market is really exploding, potential clients and customers. What do you see as the future of the personal care business as far as home care giving and whatnot?
I see a lot of growth for this industry, just as we talked about with baby boomers, coming of age. As you can see, just here in Conroe in Montgomery County, there's an assisted living facility being built at nearly every corner, So I do find that the generation that's coming of age is used to great independence, working class people that are used to being very independent and would really value staying at home during the aging process rather than transitioning to more of a skilled nursing facility. And I think that that's why this is such a needed service, as well as the assisted living facilities that function a lot different than our traditional skilled nursing facilities that the current seniors in their 80s and 90s were used to seeing for their parents.
So do you see this as kind of a transitioning, or is it a result of such a demand to move away from the facility care, if you will, to the home care?
I think it's a combination of both, in my opinion. Just that old mentality of just going into more of that skilled nursing facility where you have those shared rooms and more of isolation. Seniors today want to still be active in their 70s and 80s, and home care allows for that, as well as these assisted living facilities.
Well, as I mentioned to you, I've experienced home care more than once with family, and it was the wish of the individual to stay in the home care situation, and up to the point that one of them, they had to require round the clock, but that's what they wanted, and the family was able financially and emotionally to do that. And you always want to, the wish of an elder you would like to fulfill. This challenges you. Because you take a person and they sort of transition from just needing someone, like I mentioned to you, my father-in-law, just to talk with while my wife was out shopping, to round the clock that they may need some assistance to get out of bed or something. And will you carry people all the way through those steps?
We do. We transition them through all levels of care, depending on what the needs of the family are. Oftentimes, they start out, as you said, from just needing a companionship services, and then they transition to more of that personal care service where they are needing assistance with bathing and dressing and grooming. So, yes, we transition them. We also help families. We understand that when you get to the need of 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, home care may not be financially viable for that family because it becomes costly. But we then help our families to find good assisted living facilities or personal care homes that fit that financial need. So we don't ever just say we can't help when that level of need grows.
Well, let me ask you that just quickly on the economics. I would think to put someone to be in a facility, assisted living, nursing home, whatever, versus home care, it would seem to be less expensive to be at home. Is that not true?
It is less expensive to be at home. But like I said, when it comes to the 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, then I feel it's more financially feasible to be an assisted living facility or personal care home.
So there is that jumping off point, if you will.
Yes.
That's interesting. Well, as we kind of wind down here today, tell us what the future holds for you and your business.
Well, I hope that we see lots of growth, and I hope that I can win the trust of Montgomery County and the people here that we serve, that we can just promote, as I said, whether it's my company or not. My vision is that Comforts of Home will educate the seniors of this community so that we can make good, sound decisions, that we can support families and making good decisions for their family members and knowing all options out there.
Well, Jamie, thank you so much for educating us today and bringing information about your business, yourself, and what you're trying to accomplish here in Montgomery County. If folks want to reach out to you to talk about your business model or talk about engaging you for your services, what's the best way for them to do that?
You can reach us at 936-647-0674, and it's either myself or my office manager, Blanche, that'll answer. We're the only ones that take intake calls so that we can answer those questions for you immediately and don't have to have a return phone call.
Give us that number one more time.
It's 936-647-0674.
Well, Jamie, thank you again so much for taking your time out of your day to be with us. Jamie Meche with Home Care, Comforts of Home, Personal Care Services, to get it correct. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our bottom of the hour break. When we come back, we're going to talk with Chris Wehe of the Koch Insurance Company about how to fill out a claim just in case you have damage. So please stay with us, and we'll be right back.
Don't forget to download the Lone Star Community Radio app from your Google Play or Apple Store. Bring Montgomery County's community radio with you anywhere with your smartphone or tablet. If you are in the Conroe area, tune in on FM. That's Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1. If you are on the computer, bookmark irlonestar.com as your internet radio station. A Lone Star Community Radio, broadcasting 24/7 from the heart of downtown Conroe, Texas.
Attention movie lovers, The Ticket Stub is a new radio show servicing Montgomery County that is meant for you. The Ticket Stub is available live every Thursday at noon on FM 104.5 and 106.1, as well as anytime on irlonestar.com. Connor and Dick will let you know what's coming out in the theater, what is worth streaming, and what's going on in the world of film. The Ticket Stub, your home for movie talk.
This is Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox advisor and host of the Weekly Business Hour. I want to thank you for listening to our show today, and we're to the Expert Corner part of our show. And I'm so pleased that we have Chris Wehe back with us. He works with the Koch Insurance Group. Chris is really a fountain of information. So if you need information about commercial and business insurance, I highly recommend that you call Chris. Today, we're going to talk about claims forms. Unfortunately, as we talked about in the first segment, there have been a lot of natural disasters in the country. We've got fires, and of course we had Hurricane Harvey here in the greater Houston area, and then we have Hurricane Irma in Florida. It's like they just keep coming, and then an earthquake in Mexico. So impacting people personally, but also impacting business. Well, Chris, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Well, filling out claim forms, I mean, or what kind of coverage? I've seen a lot written in the paper lately about homeowners and what's covered. Very little about businesses, about insurance, business policies, owner policies, what is covered, not covered, if you're flooded, and you know, kind of give us a guideline on what we should expect as business owners if we've been damaged, say, by a flood.
Sure, no problem. In some respects, the commercial insurance is similar to homeowners insurance. Obviously, if you have flood insurance, it would cover water damage. Also depends if a business has property or just liability. Obviously, if they don't have property, then there's no coverage. With the property, if they have flood insurance, you would want to talk to your agent and work the process, because with commercial insurance, a lot of times there's companies that aren't well known, and they may have a different process or how you file a claim. With businesses, since they're so unique, they usually hire a commercial insurance company will hire their own adjusters to come out, versus a big name homeowners insurance company will have their own in-house. Because of the uniqueness of a business, every business is different. They will have their own adjusters come out. But you would file a claim. We recommend talking to your agent first to walk through the process. Sometimes they can file the claim for you, or at least get it started, so you don't have to worry about that. And then obviously take pictures of the damage. You know, if there's anything that has to be done, go ahead and do it, but take pictures, inventory everything that's been lost. Hopefully you've already got an inventory. Again, a lot of it's similar things you would do for your house, you would want to do for your business, and being able to process that along with your claim.
Well, you know, in a flood situation, and you touched on this, I want to be really clear with people, because it is the same as homeowners. You have to have a separate policy for flood. your typical business policy as your homeowners won't cover flood, right?
Yes, it's exactly the same. If you have a commercial property, you would need to have a separate flood policy to cover any type of flood damage, just like your home. It's exactly the same. And being able to have the flood coverage for a commercial property there's a lot of people have a lot of investment in their property, and it doesn't even have to be for a owner of the property. If you are a business and you're in a location and you've spent a significant amount of money improving that location to make it acceptable for your business, that is something that could also be covered under a flood insurance policy.
You know, one of the things that we've heard in the news here, at least in the greater Houston area, and I'm sure they're hearing in Florida or will hear, and even the wildfires, I assume they're similar, and coverages might be different because they may be covered under business policy. But we keep hearing about how few people on their homes carry flood insurance. You know, and they say, well, a lot of people are not in a flood area, flood zone, flood plain, whatever. But everybody should carry flood insurance, in my opinion, here in the greater Houston area.
Yeah, I think we've all learned that there's no such thing as a flood zone in Houston. I know there's federal, they come in and they said this is a flood zone for flood insurance purposes. But as we have seen, that really doesn't matter anymore. Our example in our office, we did not flood during Harvey, but we flood last May during the rainstorms because it was so fast, the system couldn't handle it, and our office flooded. But we did not flood during Harvey. We're not in a flood zone, but we did get flooded last year because you could have buckets of rain in an hour, or it could take a week with Harvey that it's before it floods. So there doesn't. The flood zone is only for rating insurance. After that, everybody in Houston, home and any type of property should really look hard at flood insurance. And if it's outside the flood zone, it's very inexpensive.
Well, and that's the key. I think people don't even think about it, particularly in a business environment, that, well, I've got to have flood insurance, even though I might have thought about it on my home. It's, well, my business. But let's talk about the flood insurance. That's underwritten by a government agency, generally speaking?
Sometimes, especially if it's in a flood zone, the government will underwrite it to because usually if something happens, it really happens. It's catastrophic. But there are private flood insurance carriers, and they generally will look at flood insurance outside a flood zone. And the advantage of that is that it is relatively inexpensive, and it is underwritten by an insurance carrier just like any other type of insurance policy. So usually if it's outside the flood zone, we usually try to place it outside government, just because it's less expensive and there's more flexibility with the policy.
And let me ask you, I know one of the things I found on homeowners, at least, that I have on our home, which we're outside of a flood zone, is that there are limits, pretty tight limits. In other words, you only can get X amount. Is that true in the business insurance?
Yes. Yeah. It's a little more strict or a little more structured than, say, homeowners or a regular commercial property, that there are limits that you would have set, and it's pretty standard. And you can get higher limits, but obviously the premiums would be more. But even a little coverage is better than no coverage.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because one of the things that one of my clients found, they have coverage, they are going to be covered, but when they started checking that inventory, they were really short of coverage if everything had been lost.
Yeah, and that's something to look at with your policy every year. And with commercial policies, we always, when we renew our policies, we review them. We always ask our client, what's changed? And one of the things that changed is the value of what you have in that business, either inventory, property, computers, whatever, and look at it. Do we need to look at increasing your coverage? So if something bad does happen, you're going to have the right amount of coverage.
Let's talk about filing that claim now, which was we started out filling out a claim or filing a claim for flood versus, say, a fire in the business or a theft. Is the claim process or the form, any of that, is it different?
No, not really. It's pretty standard. Like I said, usually, so we recommend talking to your agent first to walk through it, to see what they need to do. A lot of times, and we've done this in the past, is actually file the claim for our client so they can get back to what they need to do, and then get it set so the adjuster or the claims adjuster will contact the business to come out and obviously come out and look at the damage. But a lot of times we can at least get the ball rolling so they don't have to worry about it, because with different carriers, instead of them worrying about what they need, we've got a familiarity with the carriers.
And let me back up to something you said. Did you say that on the flood coverage, typically it'll be a company claims adjuster versus an outside party?
It's usually an outside party.
Outside?
Yeah,
Okay.
for commercial, because most of the time, since there's so many different commercial carriers, they don't need to have in-house carriers in each city. They'll just hire an adjuster. And usually those adjusters have more experience with commercial type issues versus somebody that may just, if an in-house adjuster for a large homeowners insurance company may just have experience with homeowners insurance. Every business is different, type of business, location, all that stuff is so much different than your just a homeowners type situation, that they usually hire more experience and that are familiar and kind of help the business owner along.
So when you have a flood situation, and like you mentioned, I agree 1,000%, your agent should at least get you started in the process and even handle the situation if possible. Make sure now you've got an adjuster coming out. You've filled out a claim. You've claimed that you've had X amount of property that's been lost or damaged. You can't use it, whatnot. Okay, the adjuster's there. What are they looking for?
They're looking for, again, inventory, the damage. They're taking pictures, how much, looking at the policy. Is it a replacement value type policy or a cash value type policy? How long it's going to take to repair. Is there sometimes with, if you have the flood and a business owner's policy, there's income reimbursement. If you're going to be out of business for 6 months to a year, some policies have income replacement where you can get money from the insurance company to pay your employees to keep yourself solvent until you're up and running.
Now that would apply in a flood situation as well?
Depends on the policy. That's again, that's something that would work with certain types of property insurance. Business owners policies are kind of an all-inclusive, which could cover that. So again, you want to talk to your agent about what you can get access to with your different types of insurance that you do have.
Well, that's one of the most important things I found when I was handling claims for a business. We had different kinds of losses, is really going back through the policy with the insurance agent, someone like yourself that's well-versed in understanding what is covered as we get into this claims process, because what was covered 10 years ago, 5 years ago may not be covered, and it's good time to check off against that.
Yeah, having your agent go over your policy with you every year, because everybody's situations change, and if something happens, we've run across instances where it wasn't being updated, and they had a fire, and the policy hadn't been reviewed in 10 years, and obviously the value of the property went up, but the coverage didn't change, and there was an issue that had to be dealt with not having the right type of coverage.
Let me ask you, now I've had this claim, adjusters come out. What should I expect, generally speaking, as someone who's filed a flood claim, as far as how long it's going to take, my reimbursement? How's that all going to work out? Because I know we're in business. If we've been substantially damaged by, that we can't really work in the business because we're missing all our computers or manufacturing equipment or whatnot. What generally should the timeframes be?
Well, obviously, with this current situation, the timeframes have all been pushed out a little bit, but 30 to 60 to 90 days, depending on if there's any issues. If, a lot of it comes back to the policyholder. How much information do they have? Do they have a really good inventory of what's been lost? Do they have pictures? Do they have, if they have all that, then that's going to make it easier for the adjuster to finish the claim, get it to processing, get the checks out. So if it's a lot of it, if hopefully the policyholders have had coverage or have that information to make it easier. So kind of a team effort for everybody.
Well, and I think that's something as we kind of wind down here, people forget if you're organized, you're going to help that claim pass through the process a lot faster.
Yeah, if everybody works together and have that information, it makes it a lot easier for everybody involved.
Well, Chris, I can't thank you enough for coming in. Obviously in our market here in the local market, but also in Florida, Mexico, out west, at any given time, we're filing claims of our business owners and have insurance. And it's important that we have an understanding of how to go through that process.
Just seems to all be happening now, doesn't it?
It just seems, well, but that happens too. It's a probability or something. Again, thank you so much for coming in. If people want to reach out to you and ask questions or perhaps have insurance needs, what's the best way for them to contact you?
You can call us at 281-417-3000, or our website is kochig.com.
And reach out to Chris Wehe. Again, I think you'll find him a great resource and a great person to handle your insurance if you're in the market. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our final break for the day. And when we come back, I'm going to offer my Silver Fox tip of the week, business succession. Why plan now? So please stay with us. We'll be right back with you.
Hey guys, I'm Joey Savage.
Corey DLG.
We are Nerd Thug Radio. Catch us every Monday from 1 to 3 and check out our website, nerdthugradio.com.
We like to talk about quilting, horseback riding, and baking quiche.
Actually, we don't, but we do like talking nerdy to you.
That's right. Every Monday from 1 to 3 p.m., hashtag talking nerdy to you.
A Lone Star Community Radio is looking for those who are interested in hosting their own talk show with monthly and weekly slots available on Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and on irlonestar.com. Start your own podcast, create your first YouTube channel, and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at irlonestar.com or call the station message line at 936-647-3776 to take your first step into the radio world.
You are listening to the Weekly Business Hour, and this is Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox advisor and host of the show. As I mentioned earlier, we're in our final segment for the day, and that's when I talk about my original Silver Fox tip of the week. This week, we're going to be talking about business succession, why plan now? But before I do that, I want to remind you, if you're listening and you have a business and you would like to be a host or a sponsor of this show, we are always looking for good sponsors of the Weekly Business Hour. It's a simple process. It's an excellent investment for your marketing and advertising. So I encourage you, email me direct at rick, R-I-C-K, at irlonestar.com if you'd like to learn a bit more about being a sponsor of the Weekly Business Hour. Business succession, why plan now? Well, first of all, you need to say, why plan now? Well, unless you're a really big planner, and some of you are, you don't often think about the things you need to plan. I mean, obviously, you need a business plan, which can be a one-pager if you know me. It can be much more extensive. Marketing, advertising plan, I think, is important. Again, it doesn't have to be a complicated document, but it gives you guidance, and it allows for accountability. One of the other things I think you need to do, and it's not necessarily a written-out plan, but you need to plan what you're going to do with your business. Whether when you're starting the business, to me, is the best time. But if you're already in business, even if you've been in business for a number of years and you haven't really thought about what I call your end game is going to be, you need to take a bit of time and think about that and maybe commit it to paper so it's something you can look at as time passes and see if you're still in tune with what you've thought about as your goal for your business. But determine, where are you going to take this business? Do you want to sell the business at the end of 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Or are you looking to pass the business on to a family member? Or when you sell the business, is it to people who work for you, who may not even work for you yet, that you're looking to hire that ace, if you will, that'll come in and work in the business, improve themselves, and eventually earn the right to buy the business? I've done all of those in myself in the course of my business history, and I've hopefully done all of them successfully. The businesses continue today, and some of this was done 20 years ago, and the business is still there operating. So there's a right way to do it and a wrong way, but it all starts with putting together your plan. Make that decision first on what you want to do with the business, everything staying the same. Again, you don't commit yourself in blood that you can't change it, particularly if it's 10, 20 years out. But think about very carefully what you want to do with the business and how you want it to look and what's going to happen to it when you move on. Second, you need a management team. If your business grows beyond yourself as a sole proprietor, and I realize many businesses, in fact, a majority, is just a sole proprietor, but they still need to decide what they're going to do with the business when they move on. And it's very important that you have some kind of management team, in my opinion, in place, whether you're going to sell it, you're going to pass it on, however you're going to dispose of the business when you move on. Because if you develop quality people, and it can be one person that's going to run the business. I heard a story once. In fact, my dad told me this when he was in high school. He was working in a drugstore in a small town in Pennsylvania. And the druggist, the pharmacist, the guy who owned the business, approached him when he was junior, senior in high school and said, I'd like for you to succeed me in this business. I want to go over to the next town and open another store. And I'm willing to pay for your college education, your professional education, and so on and so forth. Well, this was in the 1930s, 40s. the Depression was still around. What an offer. Now, my dad ultimately didn't take him up on it, but obviously this man was thinking about succession. He was thinking about what he was going to do with this business when he moved on. In this case, he wanted to expand, and he needed a management team of one to be there to take the business on. So develop somebody, again, unless you've just decided it's only going to be you and that's all it's kind of a personal business. You're in business for yourself. It's a lifestyle business, some people call it, and I respect that. I know a lot of folks personally are in lifestyle businesses. They do well. They serve their clients and customers well with their products and services, and that's okay. But if there's going to be one or more of you, try to develop someone, at least so you can take some time off. And I'm talking more than an afternoon to go to the doctor or to take, an overnight trip out of town. Train someone who can run that business for a week or two if you and your family are away. How important is that to your family? Think about that. Your ability to leave the business for a week or two and have somebody to back you up that will run the business. Maybe not grow the business like you would, but ultimately, if you plan to sell that business, let me assure you, and that's the thing that's so important. If you're going to sell that business, many times people buying businesses, yes, they want to buy a job, as it's said in small business world. They want something they can continue to do after they've moved on from where they are. But let me tell you, you increase the value of your business if you have someone or a team of people in place that can manage that business. And let me warn you, if you plan to build your business and sell it to investor type people, if you don't have a management team in place, if you don't have key people in the key 2, 3, 5 positions in your business, then the value of your business really drops. In fact, it potentially is worth nothing to investors if that's the group of people that you want to pass your business on to. The third thing I think you need to do is you need to start planning and building that team today. If you're going to need a team, you want a team, and you're not going to just lock the door when you decide to move on, don't wait. Put together a plan to build a team. Put down some criteria, a job description, and the type of people you're looking for. Look internally. If you can't find someone internally, then you have to go into the process that our guest this morning, that Jamie Meche is in every week. You've got to look for them, and you have to turn it into a process. It's not a one-shot pony kind of thing. You've got to consistently work on it, and that's why it's so important that you start now and not later, because you want to have that team in place so that it's ready to move in when you are ready to move on. And that's kind of where this whole thing comes down. You've made a decision how you want to dispose of your business, pass it on, sell it, whatnot. You've made a decision on the kind of people that are necessary to make your business more valuable in management. And again, applying in this discussion only to the sale or transition of the business. Obviously, having good people in your business at any time as employees and leaders in your business is important to the actual growth and the value today of your business. And third, you're absolutely working on that plan. And what it really boils down to is that you want to exit your business, in my opinion, where it provides the most benefit to yourself first, to your family, and then if you have employees, to your employees. And that's another element to think about. If you just close up the business and lock the door, not because you have to, but because that's a decision you're made, then you have employees who obviously are going to have to find something to do come Monday morning. And that's okay. If you communicate that, that absolutely is a strategy. But the key thing is you've thought about it. You've thought about it in advance, what you're going to do with the business. And basically now it's up to pure execution. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining us today. I appreciate, again, Jamie Meche and Chris Wehe joining us. I think they have good information. I encourage you to pick up our podcast. It'll be available later this week. It's available on Facebook. It's available on the website for the station. It's available across the world in many social medias. I encourage you, put a note on your calendar for next week, next Monday, 11 o'clock, right here. We'll have new guests and new discussions and new information. Remember, you too can sponsor the Weekly Business Hour by contacting me, Rick at irlonestar.com for details. Until next week, I encourage you, stay engaged and keep your focus on what counts in your business. Thank you.
Thanks for checking out this podcast of Lone Star Community Radio, Montgomery County's community radio station. If you enjoyed this recording, make sure to check out our past shows online at irlonestar.com or their respective video or podcast formats on YouTube, Google Play, or iTunes. If you have any questions regarding the show, either it being about sponsorships or questions for the host, contact the station manager at dick@irlonestar.com or call the station at 936-647-3776. This show was recorded in downtown Conroe, Texas at the Lone Star Community Radio Studios, and Lone Star Community Radio reserves all rights to this recording and images.